Good morning. This begins video number 1 in the deposition of Miles DeYoung in the matter Delbert Scaggio versus Miles DeYoung, City of Woodland Park et al. Civil action number 1:20-CV-01977-PAB-KMT in the United States District Court for the District of Colorado. We are on the record at 9:03 a.m. on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. This deposition is taking place via video conference with all participants appearing remotely due to COVID-19 restrictions, as well as in person at Elliott Reporting. The videographer is Scott Hatch, representing Integrity Video. The court reporter is Cindy Elliott, representing Elliott Reporting. Will counsel identify yourself and state whom you represent, please?
Nicholas Poppy on behalf of Miles DeYoung in the City of Woodland Park.
Oh, Delbert Scaggio, pro se.
Thank you. Will the reporter please swear in the witness?
You can raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And would anyone else present please be identified for the record?
Jason Myers, I'm the city attorney for the City of Woodland Park. I'm just observing today.
All right, thank you. You may proceed.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
My name is Miles DeYoung, DeYoung.
Could you state your age?
I am 45 years old.
How long have you lived in Colorado?
Since 1998.
Could you please describe Woodland Park for me?
Objection to form, you can answer.
Excuse me?
I'm making objections for the record, Mr. Scaggio. I instructed my client to answer notwithstanding my objection.
Okay, Scaggio, it is, sir.
Scaggio, I apologize.
Thank you.
Chief, you may answer if you know.
The city of Woodland Park is located in Colorado, approximately 18 miles west of Colorado Springs, has a population of approximately 8,000 residents.
What would you say is the racial makeup of Woodland Park?
Objection to form and foundation, you can answer if you know.
I believe it's relevant because in my complaint, I speak about targeting.
So I'm just making objections for the record. There's no judge here to rule on your counter proposal or counter statements. These are objections made for the record. I've instructed my client to answer notwithstanding those objections.
Okay, so I don't need to argue it. There's nobody to rule on it, is what you're saying?
That's my position. I can't give you legal advice on what you're going to do. I can only tell you what I'm doing.
Okay.
I believe that it is predominantly white.
Does a lot of crime take place in Woodland Park?
Objection to form, foundation, you can answer.
How would you classify a lot of crime?
You have property crime, you have assaults, you have crimes against people, you have narcotics crimes. There's a vast amount of different crimes that you could describe. You're the police chief, so I figured you would know what type of crime is taking place in Woodland Park.
Objection to form and foundation, argumentative, you can answer.
We do have crime in Woodland Park. There's a wide range of crimes. When compared to Colorado Springs, we have less crime than they do due to our smaller population.
What would you say your main priority is when it comes to crimes in Woodland Park?
Protecting and serving our community and maintaining a safe environment for our residents and the visitors.
What specific crime would you say is most problematic in Woodland Park?
I would say traffic accidents and traffic-related issues.
Would you say that traffic is your main priority in Woodland Park?
Objection to form.
I say we have many competing issues in Woodland Park. Traffic is near the top, yes.
What would you consider the second biggest crime related in Woodland Park?
Objection to form. You can answer.
I would probably guess our second biggest issue in crime would be crimes against persons.
So crimes of violence?
Yes, and crimes against persons, so assaults, harassments, etc.
Daily, do you know, let me go back. What's the size of your police force?
We have 22 sworn officers that are full-time.
Are all those officers post-certified?
Yes,
Are you post-certified?
yes.
What are your duties as a Woodland Park police chief?
I have a number of duties, which include interacting with the community, managing the budget, monitoring crime and safety within the community, and other duties as assigned.
Are you the chief policy maker for your department?
Objection to form. Foundation.
Yes.
What did you do before Woodland Park police chief?
Objection to form.
Can you restate that question?
What did you do prior to being Woodland Park police chief?
Objection to form.
I was a deputy chief for the city of Woodland Park.
What did you do prior to being a deputy chief for Woodland Park?
Objection to form.
I was a patrol sergeant for the city of Woodland Park.
What year were you the control sergeant for Woodland Park?
Patrol sergeant?
Yes, sir.
I was patrol sergeant until 2014. I believe I held that position for approximately 2 years prior to that.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
I've been a Colorado law enforcement officer since 2001.
Have you ever had any complaints filed against you?
Objection to form. Foundation.
Can you be more specific? What kind of complaints?
Any type of complaint that was filed against you when you were performing your specific duties as law enforcement?
Objection. Form. Foundation.
Yes.
How many complaints were filed against you?
I would say less than 5.
Can you recall the first complaint filed against you?
My best guess would be about 20 years ago.
And what did that complaint have to do with?
Command presence.
Could you get specific on that, sir?
It's called command presence in law enforcement. It's when you take control of a scene. And when I was working, it was seen that I had a lot of command presence.
So was that a positive or negative thing?
Objection to form.
It depends on the situation and the type of call that you're on.
Who filed the complaint against you?
I don't know. It was brought to my attention by a police chief when I worked at a previous law enforcement agency.
What law enforcement agency was that?
Cripple Creek Police Department.
And why did you leave Cripple Creek Police Department?
To work in a larger agency.
Did you get a pay increase?
Hourly was a pay increase, but cost of living wise, I don't believe it was.
So did this, would you consider it a promotion?
Objection to form.
No. No, I would not consider a promotion.
What actions were taken against you during this complaint? Were you punished in any way?
It was a verbal counseling from my memory.
And how long after this complaint did you leave Cripple Creek Police Department?
6 months to a year.
Would you say the complaint was a genesis for you to leave?
No.
Let's talk about your second complaint filed against you. What did that have to do with?
Objection to form.
The second complaint would have been another verbal counseling, to the best of my memory, for an accident involving a deer.
And what law enforcement agency did you work with at the time?
Routt County Sheriff's Office.
And what year was this?
I would have to guess approximately 2005 or 2006.
Is this the agency you moved to after leaving Cripple Creek
Yes.
Law Enforcement? Yes. And was there damage to something? Is that why there was a complaint filed?
Objection to form. Foundation.
It was standard to be counseled after any kind of incident involving damage. From my memory, it was very minor damage. It was 2 fawns that ran out in front of me while I was in a patrol vehicle.
How fast were you going?
Objection to form. Foundation.
Approximately 30 to 40 miles an hour.
Let's talk about your third complaint.
Chief, there's no question pending. Please wait for a question.
Could you describe your third complaint, sir?
Objection to form.
I'm trying to remember what the third complaint would be, and I'm drawing a blank at this point.
Okay, let's move on to your fourth complaint, sir. Could you describe in detail your fourth complaint?
Objection to form.
Nothing comes to mind in terms of a fourth or fifth complaint other than this current issue that we're addressing.
Okay. How long have you worked at Woodland Park Police Department?
2011.
And how did you get the job?
Objection to form.
There was an opening. I submitted my application and I was hired.
Was it a posting for the job? Is that how you heard about it? Or did you hear about it through a friend?
Objection to form.
I used to work here. I stopped by, talked to the administration who advised me that there was an opening, and I submitted an application.
What did you do prior to being law enforcement in Colorado?
Objection form.
I was an EMT on an ambulance service.
Prior to that, were you in the military?
Yes, I was.
Do they require something when you join the military that you do before you're considered an active duty member?
Objection to form and foundation.
Can you be more specific in your question?
Is there a swearing in ceremony?
Yes, there is.
And can you give us details of that ceremony? What exactly are you doing?
Objection to form.
It is a pre-written script that is recited, and I recite back what is read to me.
During this process, do you take an oath?
Yes,
And what's that oath to?
to the United States.
So you take an oath to the United States.
Yes,
Did you ever make it, do you ever remember excuse me, let me start over. Do you ever remember taking an oath to the Constitution?
Objection to form.
yes,
So would it be accurate to say in this swearing in ceremony, you are taking an oath to the Constitution?
Objection to form.
to the Constitution of the United States, yes.
So would you say taking an oath to the United States was incorrect?
Objection to form.
It was part of the entire oath. The words United States were part of my oath.
Correct. During this ceremony, you swore to uphold the, could you enter the word?
Objection to form. Don't answer that question, Chief.
What did you swear to uphold during this ceremony?
I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States.
Thank you. Are you a member of any hate groups?
Objection to form.
No,
Do you have any tattoos?
yes,
How many?
5.
Can you describe them?
I'm sorry, Mr. Judge, what's the purpose of this question? What relevancy does it have to the current lawsuit?
During this lawsuit, we said that he targeted a special needs child for overtime pay. We're just getting to the gist of if he belongs to some kind of hate group, if he has maybe some tattoos that show his affiliation with the type of hate group. We're just trying to get a background on the individual as to why he would target this special needs child.
He's already testified that he's not a part of any hate group, so I don't see the relevance of any question related to his tattoos.
Well, isn't it possible that if he has a racist tattoo, even if he's not currently part of a hate group in the past, he has affiliated with hate groups and may have that mentality?
I will allow him to answer the question of whether or not he has a tattoo related to a hate group. I will not allow you to simply explore his tattoos generally. If you want to ask that question, that's fine.
So are you a judge or authority or something, or you're just telling him not to answer?
I'm going to instruct him not to answer on the basis of relevancy. If you want to
Okay.
ask a question whether or not he has tattoos related to a hate group, that's fine. I'll allow him to answer that question. But asking him generally about his tattoos is not appropriate in this situation.
Okay. Do you have any hate group based tattoos?
Objection to form.
No.
What type of law do you enforce?
Objection to form, foundation.
Criminal and civil law.
Federal or state law? Which one?
Objection to form, foundation.
Federal, state, and municipal.
Could you repeat that answer, sir?
We assist in federal, state, and municipal law enforcement.
Have you ever charged someone with a federal crime?
No.
Have you ever enforced federal law on someone?
Objection to form.
No.
Do you know federal law?
Objection to form, foundation.
Do you know federal law?
I'm sorry,
I know.
Mr. Sedgwick, what are you asking by that question?
If he's up to date on federal statutes,
The entire 42 volumes of the federal code? Is that what you're asking?
United States Code, yes.
Objection to form and foundation. You can answer to the extent you know.
Do you know the United States Code, sir?
I know some of it, but I cannot speak to all of it.
You know how to get information from it if you wish to charge someone, though. You can look up, you understand how to look up United States Code?
Objection to form.
Yes.
You said you work on, you work with federal agencies, or you work enforcing federal law? Which one is it?
Objection to form, misstates prior testimony. You can answer.
We do work with federal agencies on various investigations.
Would it be correct to say in a criminal investigation that the local municipality is the one who calls in the federal agency to assist with their criminal investigation? Would that be correct?
Objection to form, foundation.
That sounds correct.
So anytime you're working with federal officers, more than likely, you're the individual that calls them in. Is that correct?
Objection to form.
Typically, yes.
Is there a high turnover rate in your department?
Objection to form.
How would you define high?
Out of 20 people, how many people left last year?
I'd have to check to give you a definitive answer, but probably 6 or 7.
So that's almost 40% of your staff. Would that be correct?
Counting the retirements, yes.
In 2018, how many officers did you have on duty?
Our authorized strength is 22 officers. I don't know how many vacancies I had in 2018. So it'd probably be 15 to 18 officers.
How much of your budget is made up of grant money?
Objection to form, foundation.
I don't know the exact percent. We do use grants in order to aid the city budget and equipment and other expenses.
Do you receive federal grants in relation to narcotics activity?
Objection to form.
We've received a state grant for marijuana enforcement, yes. And we received the Law Enforcement Activity Fund grant.
Are these from state agencies?
The state of Colorado.
In 2017, did you apply for state grants and concerns with gray market, black and gray market legislation that was just passed?
Yes.
Objection to form.
how did you become aware of these grants?
I believe it was through emails from the state advertising the availability of that money.
And roughly, can you tell me specifically what these grants entail?
Objection to form foundation.
They were used to reimburse the department for costs related to marijuana investigations.
Was there a limit on these reimbursements?
Objection to foundation.
Limit in terms of the amount that they provided. Can you clarify?
So a limit as to the maximum amount that they could reimburse you and your department.
Objection to form and foundation.
The grants were a competitive crop process throughout the state of Colorado. And we applied for the grant for a couple of years and received money. This last year, we did not receive any money.
So you were competing for money for your law enforcement agency, is that correct?
Objection to form.
We were submitting a grant application that people outside of my department were selecting various agencies to be awarded amounts of that money.
And how much money did you receive in 2018?
Objection to form.
I'd have to refer to the grant documents, but if memory serves, it was approximately $100,000.
And how many marijuana raids did you conduct that year?
Objection to form.
I would have to check our records in order to answer that accurately.
Can you give me an approximation?
Are you asking him to speculate?
I'm asking for a approximation.
Objection to form and foundation.
I'm not sure if I feel comfortable speculating on this answer. I do know that we were working with other agencies and we were involved in their cases, not just the City of Woodland Park cases.
Can you name all the agencies that you work with on these raids?
Objection to form and foundation.
Working with search warrants, I don't know if I can name all of the agencies. I can name some of the agencies, which would include Teller County Sheriff's Office, El Paso County Sheriff's Office, Colorado Springs Police Department. And those are the ones that come to mind right off the bat.
You work with the DEA?
Objection to form.
Occasionally.
You work with the FBI?
Objection to form.
Occasionally.
How do you guys split up the asset forfeiture?
Objection to form foundation.
We very rarely go after asset forfeiture. That's handled typically through the Metro VNI administration.
But you are aware that each agency you mentioned does get some type of percentage from the asset forfeiture, even if VNI is the head controlling entity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Objection to form foundation.
Do you get more of a percentage when the search warrant is conducted in your municipality?
Objection to form and foundation.
I'm not sure how to answer that because we do so few of them.
The number of raids you conduct does not matter. Are you aware of percentage changes in the disbursement of property taken according to the location of the search warrant?
Objection to form and foundation.
That does sound familiar, but I'm not able to recall the exact percentages.
You could provide the documents though.
Objection to form and foundation.
Which documents?
The documents where the DEA lists the percentages that each municipality gets according to their law enforcement asset forfeiture. You sign a contract with the DEA. You signed a contract with the DEA to get a percentage of the asset forfeiture. Is that correct?
Objection to form and foundation.
I'm not aware of signing any contracts with the DEA. We do belong to the Metro VNI task force, so they are a part of that task force though.
In 2018, you said you had roughly between 15 and 18 officers on duty. Are you aware daily of the crimes that are being committed in your municipality?
Objection to form.
For the most part, when we come in contact with people, yes.
So you would say anytime you come in contact with somebody, you know what's happening in your department, is what you're saying.
Objection to form.
Not all the time, but in most cases.
How do you hold your officers accountable for their actions?
Objection to form.
Can you restate that question? I'm not sure what you're asking.
How do you hold your officers accountable for their actions?
Objection to form.
If an officer, let's say, told an individual they could not film, and you know that's unconstitutional, please tell me how you would discipline or hold this officer accountable.
Objection to form foundation.
They would involve looking at their previous discipline, their performance record, and then applying progressive discipline.
Please explain progressive discipline.
Progressive discipline starts at the lowest level, i.e. a verbal warning, and then ranges through a variety of intermediary steps that ends in up to and including termination.
What is the main concern for you when it comes to your patrol officers' conduct?
Maintaining their credibility and their safety.
How many patrol officers did you discipline in 2018?
Objection to form foundation.
I don't know off the top of my head. That's something that I would have to research.
So you're saying you did discipline patrol officers in 2018?
Objection to form misstates prior testimony. You can answer.
Did you discipline any patrol officers in 2018?
Objection to form.
I have other supervisors that may have provided discipline in terms of my direct actions for discipline. There's a possibility, but I can't answer that definitively without researching it.
How many supervisors do you have working under you?
Objection to form.
I have 2 commanders, 1 sergeant, 4 corporals, a dispatch supervisor, and an assistant dispatch supervisor.
So half of the entire police department is supervisors, would that be correct?
I would say less than half. We also have a number of volunteers and part-time or volunteer status employees.
And what do those volunteers provide or do?
We have, at this time, 4 part-time or volunteer police officers, and we have between 6 and 8 victim advocate volunteers.
Are these volunteer police officers post-certified?
Yes,
Do they get any pay whatsoever?
2 of them are paid as part-time officers, 2 of them are unpaid volunteers.
And do these unpaid volunteers take part in any arrests?
Yes,
Do these unpaid volunteers participate in the search warrants?
Objection to form.
they can.
Do these unpaid volunteers testify in court?
They can.
What do you do to stay up on current law?
Objection to form.
Attend trainings when available, and we do annual refresher training through the Colorado District Attorney's Council
And how often is that?
annually.
Now, this gray money grant you got in 2018, did that include training for your officers?
I would have to look at this grant specifics, but I don't believe it did.
In 2018, no, let's take it to 2017. In 2017, did you conduct any training for your officers?
We conduct a lot of training for our officers, at least 24 hours per year.
Okay. In 2017, what did that training entail?
Legal update, arrest control, firearms, harassment training, anti-bias training. There's a lot of stuff I would have to actually look up into our records.
Did any of that training have to do with marijuana grows?
I would have to check my records, but there's a chance that it did.
In 2018, how many trained narcotics vice officers, or how many trained, let me restate that. In 2018, how many officers did you have that were trained in narcotics?
Objection to form.
What level of training are you asking about? All officers receive some basic level. Is there something, are you asking about a higher level training, or can you be more specific?
What general training were your officers, what general training did they have in 2018 with respects to narcotics?
Objection to form.
Basically, all of our officers receive basic DUI training that involves narcotics training, as well as additional individual trainings that they may go off to above and beyond that. If you're asking about specifically trained officers, I had one former narcotics detective and one current narcotic detective.
What was the name of the former narcotics detective? Sorry about that. What was the name of your narcotics vice? Did you say you had a detective?
We had a former narcotics detective that was working with us at the time, yes.
What was his name?
Mike Reeder.
Did he have any history of drug abuse?
Not that I was aware
Form
of.
foundation. Sorry,
How did the other officers view Mike Greeter?
Sir. Let's wait to get the chief's answer on the record, please. Objection to form of foundation. Chief, go ahead.
Which question am I answering?
Or reporter, did you get the answer to the previous question?
Did he have any history of drug abuse? I had an objection and then the answer, he started to say no and something else, but I have a no.
Chief, was that your full answer to that question?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Sorry, sir, go ahead.
Kind of forgot where I was. Give me a second. And how did the other officers view Mike Greeter?
Objection to form and foundation.
He was viewed favorably.
And who was the other individual that was trained on narcotics?
His name was Zach Kittle.
Zach Kittle. Are you aware of all search warrants conducted?
Objection to form and foundation.
Officer Torrance is not one of my officers.
I asked if you were aware of all the search warrants that were conducted.
Objection to form and foundation.
I'm trying to understand your question. You're asking if I'm aware of the search warrants that were conducted?
So if a search warrant goes down in your small town and your police department is executing that search warrant, you are aware of the search warrant. Would that be correct?
Objection to form and foundation.
Yes.
Do you personally look over every search warrant?
No.
Are officers just allowed to go out and start narcotics investigations?
Objection to form.
Narcotics investigations are just one of the many things that they do. So if they are out and they come across something that they deem as suspicious, they will look into it. So yes, they are allowed to initiate an investigation.
How much narcotics training does Greg Gearman have?
Objection to form, foundation.
I don't know exactly how much training Greg Guyman has.
And how long has Greg Guyman been with the department?
He had 11 years in law enforcement at the time of the 2018 search.
And what was that 11 years? What did he do for that 11 years? Do you know?
Objection to form.
He was a police officer, and then he was a investigator with the district attorney's office. And then he came back to be a police officer.
Where did he work for before he came to work for you?
I would have to check his personnel file.
What type of background checks do you do on officers that you hire?
We'll do a NCIC, CCIC background check, and then there's a fairly substantial work history and residence history that goes along with it.
Do you check their prior record for complaints?
Objection to form.
At previous agencies, yes.
Would you say complaints have no effect on whether you will hire an officer?
No, I would say that that's one factor that we look at when hiring an officer.
Have you ever not hired an officer because of complaints?
I can't think of anybody specifically, but that would be a possibility.
Do you take an oath to be in your position?
Yes.
Form.
And what gives you the authority to say arrest me?
Objection to form.
my oath of office and being a police officer in the state of Colorado, should you commit something that would warrant an arrest.
And that oath of office, specifically, who do you swear to?
I swear to the city clerk who is providing that oath of office when I recite it.
Would it be accurate to say that you swear to honor something?
Yes,
Would it be accurate to say that you swear to honor the Constitution?
Objection to form.
yes.
And what does the Constitution mandate?
Objection to form. Foundation, are you asking him for a legal opinion about what the Constitution states?
I'm asking him what the Constitution mandates. He swore an oath to it. He should know what the Constitution mandates. It's pretty much common knowledge if you're a law enforcement agent.
Are you referring to all provisions of the Constitution or a specific provision?
It's just a basic thing. The Constitution mandates someone, it restricts someone. It's basic constitutional stuff, man. Any law enforcement officer should know it. If he doesn't know it, well, my question stands.
You can answer to the extent you understand the question.
To the extent that I understand the question, yes, I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States.
The question was, what does the Constitution mandate?
Objection to form. Foundation calls for a legal conclusion. Can answer to the extent you know.
I know that you're looking for a specific answer. I just can't give it to you at this time.
What does the Constitution restrict?
Again, sir, you're going to have to be more specific. It's got 27 amendments to it in about 6 different sections. So, you're going to have to be more specific about what
The
question.
entire Constitution restricts one thing.
I don't believe that to be an accurate legal conclusion.
My question stands.
I'm going to instruct you not to answer that question.
Who is the beneficiary of the Constitution?
Objection to form. Foundation calls for a legal conclusion. You can answer to the extent you know.
The beneficiaries of the Constitution are the citizens of the United States.
Good answer. So would it be accurate to say that the Constitution mandates that you protect my rights?
Objection to form. Foundation calls for a legal conclusion. You can answer.
I would say that it applies to your rights and everybody's rights.
Do you have rights as law enforcement?
Objection to form. Foundation calls for legal conclusion.
Yes,
The Constitution gives you rights as law enforcement.
Objection to form. Foundation asked and answered calls for legal conclusion. You can answer again, Chief.
I stand by my previous answer.
You never answered the question.
He provided an answer, sir.
Would it be accurate if I said that the Constitution restricts public servants in the government from violating my rights?
Objection to form and foundation calls for a legal conclusion. You can answer to the extent you know.
To the extent I know, yes.
So would it be proper to say that the Constitution is a contract between me and you, and it restricts you from violating my rights as you understand your
Objection
job to
form.
be.
Objection to form. Calls for legal conclusion. Misstates the Constitution. Objection to foundation. You can answer to the extent you know.
I don't know that I see it as a contract between you and I, but I would agree that it does restrict certain actions.
So you do not believe that the Constitution is a contract between me and you?
Objection asked and answered.
That's not a consideration that's not a term that I've considered before.
Who gives you your authority?
Objection to form. Foundation.
Are you asking my authority as a law enforcement officer, providing my oath by the city clerk? I could use some clarification.
Who gives you the authority to enforce the laws that you enforce?
Objection to form. Asked and answered.
I would say part of what gives me the authority would be Colorado revised statutes.
So would you say you're clothed in the authority of the state?
Objection to form. Foundation calls for legal conclusion. You can answer to the extent you know.
I believe that's accurate.
What do you do to ensure during the marijuana raids that individuals' constitutional rights are not violated?
Objection to form. Foundation.
During a marijuana search warrant, there is considerable time that goes into investigating the validity of it being illegal. A search warrant is drawn up after considerable time has been spent investigating the incident, and that search warrant is submitted to a judge for review. And sometimes the judge approves the search warrant, sometimes they don't. If a search warrant is approved, officers will execute that search warrant with a number of supervisors present to ensure that it is conducted in a proper manner.
Has your department ever had a search warrant rejected by a judge?
Objection to form. Foundation.
I would say yes.
And what did that search warrant have to do with?
Objection to form. Foundation.
I can't speak specifically to a exact incident or search warrant. It is not uncommon for a search warrant to be missing an item, or a judge may want to see something additional within a search warrant. If we have knowledge of that, we will resubmit that search warrant.
In the last 5 years, have you had to resubmit a search warrant because it was rejected?
Objection to form. Foundation.
I have not, to the best of my knowledge, no.
There's 2 constitutional amendments in Colorado that have to do with medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. What are those?
Objection to form. Foundation. You can answer.
Amendment 20 was passed for medical marijuana around 2000, and Amendment 64 was passed for recreational marijuana around 2014.
And do you respect those amendments?
Objection to form.
I do.
And do you honor those amendments when you prepare a search warrant?
Objection to form.
Yes.
Now, you spoke earlier, you said that, and this might not be exact, But you said, you know, a lot of detail and a lot of stuff goes into getting these warrants. Could you tell me exactly what officers do to get a search warrant?
Objection to form foundation.
It depends on the search warrant that they're applying for. Are you talking specifically about a marijuana search warrant?
Let's talk about marijuana search warrants. Yes, specifically a marijuana search warrant. What do you do to prepare that?
Objection to form and foundation.
With a marijuana search warrant, we will try to determine if there's reasonable suspicion that there might be a grow or some kind of illegal activity. We will work with one of the narcotics officers that's been trained through Metro VNI that has more experience in these operations than the average patrol officer will. The course of the investigation may take hours, days, weeks, months, or even years to put it together. Once they've determined that there is something that needs to be checked, it depends on how they want to approach it. Sometimes it can be a simple knock and talk, where the officer will just knock on the door, talk to the person that might have something going on in relations to marijuana. And after a conversation, if everything's in order, then the officers will close that case and move on to something else. Depending on the size of the operation, they may continue the investigation, checking various records. And at the end of the due diligence, if they decide to apply for a warrant, then they'll apply for that search warrant.
What type of records do you check?
Objection to form.
It depends on the type of investigation, but it can range from in-house records, medical marijuana card holders, other organizations or law enforcement agencies, utility records.
When you speak of medical marijuana card holders, how do you specifically check that?
Objection to form foundation.
I haven't checked one in a long time, but I believe that there is a number that the officers can call and provide an address or name, and it can be verified.
Do you check those on all search warrants?
Objection to form foundation.
I believe they make an attempt to check them, yes.
And that would be written in the search warrant, is that correct?
Objection to form foundation.
I'm not sure if it'll be written into that search warrant.
Now, can any officer start a narcotics investigation?
Yes.
And who made this specific policy where any officer can start a narcotics investigation?
Objection to form.
There is no policy on it. An officer can start a domestic violence investigation, a burglary investigation, a robbery or arson investigation, a marijuana investigation. They're allowed to start investigations if they see something that they feel they need to investigate.
Are officers allowed to start a narcotics investigation based on the smell of strawberries?
Objection to form.
Based on what you're telling me, that wouldn't make sense.
You can start a narcotics investigation based on strawberries. Is that your answer? Yes?
Misstates the prior testimony. Can answer again, Chief.
Based on what you stated, that would not make sense, so no.
Then why could you not start a narcotics investigation based on the smell of strawberries?
Objection to form.
I'm unaware of it being illegal to have strawberries.
Can you start a narcotics investigation based on the smell of marijuana?
Objection to form.
Yes, we can.
And why is that?
Objection to form. Foundation.
Because we found that not all marijuana operations are legal.
And you can tell that from smell?
Objection to form. Foundation.
No, that's why we actually do an investigation.
I'll bring up some exhibits here. Let me bring up this one. I can find the exhibit. Let me look at it in my notes real quick, and I'll tell you exactly which one. I had them memorized, but forgot them. Okay, exhibit 2, please. I'll get you a page number in just a second. We're gonna go to, let me see this page. Is page 3 of 10?
Okay.
And we're gonna go right here to number 3. It says personal use of marijuana notwithstanding. See that? Is that where we're on? Page 3. Yeah. I can't read this. Can you see this, Chief?
Yes, I can.
Let's see here. Let's pull this up to right here so this number's right like here.
Did it kick you to the next one?
Yeah.
Still on there.
It's up more to the number 3.
Oh, personal use.
Yeah.
Right here.
There we go, right there. Is there any way to scroll it up or it won't?
That's as far as I can go without it booting me to the next page.
Can you read me number 3 of the personal use of marijuana on this exhibit?
You can go ahead, Chief.
Personal use of marijuana, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the following acts are not unlawful and shall not be an offense under Colorado law or the law of any locality within Colorado, or be a basis for seizure or forfeiture of assets under Colorado law for persons 21 years of age or older.
Okay, and let's go. Let's go to section B of that one right there. Could you read me section B?
Possessing, growing, processing, or transporting no more than 6 marijuana plants with 3 or fewer being mature flowering plants and possession of the marijuana produced by the plants on the premises where the plants were grown, provided that the growing takes place in an enclosed, locked space, is not conducted openly or publicly, and is not made available for sale.
Would you say the smell of marijuana in Colorado is lawful activity?
Objection to form and foundation.
Yes,
Then why are you using smell to start search warrants?
Objection to form, foundation, argumentative. You can answer.
it is just one component that we use to start investigating whether or not there is something illicit going on.
Would you say in Colorado that you have a right to privacy inside the smell of marijuana?
Objection to form and foundation. Inside the smell? I'm not sure.
Let
Your
me
question.
revise that. Would you say you have a right to privacy in your personal use of marijuana?
Objection to form and foundation calls for legal conclusion. You can answer if you like.
I would say that yes, if they're following the law.
How can you tell if an individual is following the law from a smell?
Objection to form and foundation.
You can't.
So how can you start a marijuana investigation based off of smell?
Objection to form and foundation.
Because it can lead to a larger investigation where something illicit was being done.
So legal activity is reasonable suspicion. Is that what you're saying?
Objection to form, foundation. You can answer if you know.
I consider it much in the same way as when we smell an odor of alcohol coming from a person that's driving. It's a legal substance to have, but that doesn't mean that they're conducting legal activity.
Are the standards the same for a search of a vehicle as for the search of a residence?
Objection to form, foundation.
Yes.
Why are we not starting criminal investigations off the smell of marijuana? Excuse me, sorry, wrong. I got too pumped up there. Let me calm down. Okay, why are we not starting criminal investigations based off the smell of strawberries?
Sir, you're gonna have to define "we" in this context. I don't understand.
Why
your
is
question.
Woodland Park Police Department not initiating narcotics investigations based on the smell of strawberries?
Objection to form, foundation.
I'm not aware that strawberries are involved in any illicit activity.
Is it because strawberries are legal?
Objection to form, foundation, misstates his testimony. Answer.
Are strawberries illegal? I withdraw the question. Are strawberries legal in Colorado?
Yes.
Is marijuana legal in Colorado?
Objection to form, foundation calls for legal conclusion.
When following the law, yes.
Is the smell of marijuana legal in Colorado?
Objection to form, foundation calls for legal conclusion.
Yes, when following the law.
Explain to me how you get reasonable suspicion from a legal substance.
Objection to form, foundation. The state's prior testimony calls for legal conclusion. You can answer.
When it's not being conducted in a legal manner.
How can you tell? I withdraw the question. Please explain to me how smell can be conducted in an illegal matter in reference to your last answer.
Objection to form and foundation. You can answer to the extent you understand the question.
To the extent that I understand the question, the smell in and of itself is not illegal.
So starting a criminal investigation on something that is legal would be bad police practices?
Objection to form, foundation. I don't know what you mean, sir, by bad police practices.
I withdraw the question. Conducting a search based on legal activity would be unconstitutional.
Objection to form, foundation.
Is that correct?
Calls for legal conclusion.
I withdraw the question.
Sir, are you done with this current exhibit? Can we take it down?
No, we'll leave it up. Okay, go ahead and take it down. Please explain to me your definition of reasonable suspicion.
Objection, form, foundation, calls for legal conclusion. Answer.
Reasonable suspicion would be facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe that a crime was being committed or could be committed.
Can you get reasonable suspicion from the smell of marijuana?
Objection to form and foundation, calls for legal conclusion. You can answer.
From the smell of marijuana alone, no.
Can you please give me your definition of probable cause?
Form and foundation, calls for legal conclusion. You can answer.
Facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe that there's a high probability that a crime had been committed therein.
What standard is higher?
Probable cause.
Can you get probable cause from the smell of marijuana?
Objection to form and foundation, calls for legal conclusion.
Probable cause for marijuana alone is
Smell.
unlikely. I'm sorry?
Could you re-answer the question? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I wanted you to include the word smell. So I'm sorry. Could you re-answer the question, sir?
Probable cause based just upon the smell of marijuana is unlikely.
Do you allow your officers to start narcotics investigations based on smell?
Objection to form, foundation. You can answer.
Yes.
So based on your testimony, the actions of your officers are unconstitutional when the investigation is based on the smell of marijuana.
Sir, he did not testify to that in any capacity. That's a blatant misstatement of his prior testimony. Don't answer that question.
What is the requirements for a search warrant?
You can answer that question. Objection to form and foundation, but you can answer.
Presenting probable cause to the facts known by the officer to a judge to convince that judge that there is probable cause to believe that there's a crime that has been committed therein.
Would it be accurate to say that you stated you cannot have probable cause based off of the smell of marijuana?
Objection to form, foundation, incomplete hypothetical, the state's prior testimony. You can answer.
It is unlikely that probable cause would be derived just from smell of marijuana.
You allow your officers to do searches on the utilities?
Objection to form and foundation calls for legal conclusion. You can answer.
We do allow them to request utilities, yes.
And these utilities, they're not a third party, is that correct?
Sir, what do you mean by they're not a third party?
Most utility companies are third parties. It's third party doctrine. You familiar with it?
I don't believe I am in this context. Can you ask the question, please?
Is the utilities records they request, do they come from a third party?
Objection to form and foundation. You can answer to the extent you know.
Some of them can, yes.
Specifically, the water bill officers request, do they come from the third party?
Objection to form and foundation. You can answer if you know.
The water utilities are run by the city of Woodland Park.
So would it be accurate to say that the government owns the utilities?
Objection to form and foundation calls for legal conclusion.
It is accurate to say the city of Woodland Park operates the water utilities for the city of Woodland Park.
Would you consider the city of Woodland Park the government?
I would consider them a municipal government.
Do you consider Woodland Park Police Department as part of the government?
Objection to form, asked and answered.
I do consider the Woodland Park Police Department part of the city of Woodland Park.
So would you say the individuals who own the utilities and the individuals who own the police department are the same entity?
Objection to form, foundation calls for legal conclusion. Answer.
I believe that's accurate.
Would you consider allowing officers to start investigations based on legal activity unconstitutional?
Objection to form and foundation, incomplete hypothetical calls for legal conclusion. Answer to the extent you understand.
I withdraw the question. Is it unconstitutional to start a criminal investigation from legal activity?
Objection to form and foundation calls for legal conclusion. You can answer to the extent you know.
You're asking if it's unconstitutional for officers to initiate a search on legal activities. I just want to make sure I understand the question.
Initiate a criminal investigation.
If they believe there's something more involved, then yes.
Would you consider that a hunch?
Objection to form, foundation.
If they find reasonable suspicion to investigate or look further into something, I see nothing wrong with that.
Please explain to me how you get reasonable suspicion from the smell of a legal substance.
Objection to form and foundation, incomplete hypothetical, calls for legal conclusion. Go ahead.
I can compare this similarly to alcohol. It's a legal substance. However, when people are driving with an excessive amount of alcohol, or if they are involved with marijuana and have an excessive number of marijuana plants, then yes, that is something that we'll look into, because while it is a legal activity, it can have illegal consequences.
When's the last time your department raided somebody's house based on the smell of alcohol?
Objection to form and foundation, argumentative. Answer.
It's a similar controlled substance, but not in recent memory.
Would it be accurate to say, in the history of you working at Woodland Park, no one's house has ever been raided for the smell of alcohol?
Objection to form and foundation.
I would say that's inaccurate when it comes to underage alcohol parties.
When's the last time in Woodland Park anybody's house has been raided for the smell of strawberries?
Objection to form and foundation.
I don't believe that that's occurred.
Is there a Colorado revised statute that says the smell of marijuana is illegal?
Objection to form and foundation, calls for legal conclusion.
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, when we're talking about the search warrant process, specifically, are you looking to know who's, no, let's go back. Let's go to the community. Would you say you're pretty in touch with the community? Do you live in Woodland Park?
Chief, you can answer that to the extent you desire to, but I instruct you not to if it implicates your privacy concern.
I would say that, yes, I live in Teller County.
Would you say that you know most of the individuals in your county?
Absolutely not.
Do you know a Colton Wolf?
I've never met Colton Wolf to the best of my memory.
Did you discuss the raid on his house?
I'm sorry, that question could call for attorney-client privilege communications. I'm going to instruct my client not to answer unless it's been narrowed in scope.
Have you discussed Colton Wolf with anybody besides your attorney?
And Chief, that would include myself and the city attorney. So with that restriction, you can answer.
Have I discussed Colton Wolf with anybody other than my attorneys? Possibly.
Do you know of previous raids on Colton Wolf's house?
Objection to form and foundation.
I can't speak to specific compliance checks, but I do know that there had been at least one previous compliance check that I'm aware of.
What's the difference between a compliance check and a search warrant?
Search warrant is signed by a judge. A compliance check involves knocking on the door and having a face-to-face conversation without a search warrant.
And do most of these compliancy checks, are they based, let me withdraw the question. What triggers a compliancy check?
Objection to form and foundation.
An investigation where marijuana growing is a concern.
So why do some people get search warrants and some people get compliancy checks?
Objection to form foundation.
Based on the size of the suspected grow.
And what are some contributing factors that allow you, wait, let me withdraw the question. What are the contributing factors that help you identify with size?
Objection to form foundation.
Based on the size of the property, the amount of water, the amount of electricity, how strong the odor is. Those are some of the variables.
Is there a Colorado revised statute that says that grows have to be a specific size?
Objection to form foundation calls for legal conclusion.
Yes.
Can you state it? Is there a way you could look it up? Are you saying it's based on square feet?
Sir, you have to ask one question at a time and allow.
Sorry. Can you find this revised statute?
Are you asking to look for it today?
He could produce it. I got thousands of other questions, so he could produce it.
Well, if you want to submit a written discovery request for production of that, I'm happy to respond under the federal rules. I'm not going to have him produce documents in the middle of a deposition that haven't previously been requested in this case.
No worries. That works. Cool. Okay. When you say there is a Colorado revised statute based on size, is it in square feet, square meters? Could you give me some details of what you know?
Objection to form foundation calls for legal conclusion.
Yes, when you said size of a marijuana grow, my interpretation was the size of the grow in terms of how many plants. So yes, there is CRS that specifically addresses how many plants a person can have. To your question about square footage, I'm not aware of that.
And if I had 6 plants in Colorado, would that be illegal?
Objection to form foundation calls for legal conclusion.
Are you talking about recreational or medical?
If I had 6 plants in Colorado, would that be legal?
Objection to form foundation, incomplete hypothetical, calls for legal conclusion.
To the best of my knowledge, six plants would not be legal. Or illegal, I'm sorry.
How do you guys tell how many plants are inside a grow
Objection to form foundation.
before going in the grow?
Same objection.
It involves the investigation, which includes utilities, how strong the odor is, the size of the location that we're looking at. It's the investigation that helps us determine whether or not we need to apply for a search warrant.
Specifically tell me how odor tells you how many plants are inside a grow.
Objection to form foundation, misstates his testimony. You can answer.
It is an imprecise science. One plant doesn't give off much smell or odor. However, a very large grow gives off a significantly larger amount of odor.
How many investigations have you gone on dealing with marijuana growth?
Objection to form foundation. What do you mean by gone on?
How many search warrants have you participated in concerns with marijuana house grows?
Objection to form foundation.
I don't have a specific number. I would say more than 15 or 20.
Were all the plants the same size in all the raids you attended?
Objection to form and foundation.
And all the search warrants that I attended, they were in various stages from seed all the way up to significant size.
Now, you speak of science, that there's a science involved here. Where did you learn this science?
Objection to form and foundation.
My comment was along the lines of it being an imprecise science.
So what you say, well, would it be accurate to say you believe there's no scientific correlation between smell and accurate plant number?
Objection to form and foundation.
I believe that could be an accurate statement.
Do your officers know what 6 plants smell like?
Objection to form and foundation.
I can't speak for them.
Do you know what 6 plants smell like?
Objection to form and foundation.
No,
How does the smell of 6 plants differ from the smell of 12 plants?
Objection to form and foundation.
I can't define that.
Would it be accurate to state that you believe there is no correlation between smell and accurate plant number?
Objection to form and foundation. Asked and answered. Answer again.
If you're asking if I believe that there's a difference between 6 plants and 12 plants in the smell, I believe there's other variables that can come in there. Like you already mentioned, where they're at in the growth state. If they've all just been potted and they've just started to grow, they're not going to smell the same as, fully flowering plants.
Could you read back the last question I asked, please, recorder?
Would it be accurate to state that you believe there is no correlation between smell and accurate plant number?
I'm going to resubmit that question so you could answer it because you did not answer it.
Sir, he provided an answer that's argumentative. Objection to form and foundation. Asked and answered. You can answer again.
I believe that there's going to be a difference between 6 plants that are just starting to be growing versus 12 plants that have been growing for a number of months or years. So I do believe that there is a difference. However, I cannot quantify that.
So at different stages, the plants will smell different. Is that correct?
Objection to form and foundation.
I believe that based on where they are in the growing process, if they're a 1 or 2 inch seedling versus fully grown, I believe that there's a difference, yes.
Can you tell this based off of smell?
Objection to form and foundation.
I don't believe I can.
Can you accurately assume any plant number based on smell?
Objection to form and foundation.
I don't believe I can.
Is the smell of marijuana constitutionally protected under Amendment 64?
Objection to form and foundation calls for legal conclusion.
The smell of marijuana is constitutionally protected, yes.
Do your officers start search warrants based on constitutionally protected activity?
So what do you mean by start search warrants? You're gonna have to define that term.
Initiate search warrants.
Yeah, you're gonna have to define that term.
Are officers allowed to apply for search warrants based off of the smells of marijuana?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
Solely, no.
Are officers allowed to start criminal investigations based off the smell of marijuana?
They are allowed to initiate an investigation based on the smell of marijuana, yes.
Whose policy is it to start criminal investigations based on legal activity?
Objection to Foreman Foundation. This state's prior testimony. You can answer.
There's a department policy to investigate what could be a crime.
Could be? Is
Correct,
that accurate?
to the best of my knowledge.
Would you consider it a hunch?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
I would consider it an investigation where an officer believes they have reasonable suspicion that there is a crime that could be looked into.
Does your office start criminal investigations based on strawberries?
Objection to Foreman Foundation. Asked and answered.
During the search warrant process, are you
Are you
worried about?
withdrawing that question?
Oh, I thought you said not to answer it. I'm sorry. Let's leave that question. We'll let them answer it.
No,
Are criminal investigations based on race?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
no,
Are criminal investigations based on one's prior run-ins with the law?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
not that I'm aware.
So during the search warrant process, for officer safety, what do you do before you execute a search warrant?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
What are you asking in terms of what do we do? What is our process or?
So if you're going to execute a search warrant on an individual, ex-military, maybe specialized in explosives, what would you do different in that search warrant compared to, say, a family with special needs? Like, what are you doing to keep your officers safe and know what you're going to encounter when you execute this search warrant?
Objection to Foreman Foundation. Incomplete hypothetical. Answer.
When we execute a search warrant, we try to make sure that we have enough officers on scene to ensure the public's safety, the residents' safety, as well as the officer's safety.
Do you investigate to find out who's in the house?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
We try to, yes.
Do you treat all search warrants the same?
Objection to Foreman Foundation. What do you mean by the same?
Do you bring in the SWAT team, the Bearcat? Do you call for other agencies to help? Do you call for more backup? Is it pretty much, every search warrant, are they conducted identical to the search warrant on Colton's house?
Chief, answer only the last question to those series of questions. But Foreman Foundation, you can answer.
So is the question, do we treat every search warrant the same?
Correct.
No.
Would you say for officer safety, you have to know who the individuals are inside of the house?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
I would say for the officer, community, and resident safety, we try to find out who is in the house. Yes,
So would it be accurate to say that you knew a special needs child was inside Colton Wolfie's house
Objection to form and foundation.
during the search warrant that you conducted?
Same objections.
that is an assumption, and I was unaware that who exactly was in the house at the time of the search warrant.
Would it be accurate to say that you do not receive grant money unless you conduct narcotics searches?
Objection to form and foundation.
That is not accurate. We conduct narcotics investigations, whether there's grant money or not.
Would you say that there was more marijuana raids in 2018 than in 2016?
Objection to form and foundation.
I would have to check our records to verify that. We don't do very many of them.
Do you have any knowledge of the raid on Colton Wolfie's house?
Chief, same instructions as before. Any information you've obtained from my office or the city attorney's office is privileged, and I instruct you not to answer. To the extent you have information you obtained outside of those two sources, you can answer.
I can say that, yes, I have read the police report on that compliance check.
It was a compliance check?
Started as a search warrant and it ended as a compliance check.
Remember how many plants he had?
Objection to form and foundation.
13 plants off the top of my head.
How long does it take you to count 13 plants?
Objection to form and foundation. Are you asking him generally how long it takes the chief to count?
How long does it take the chief to count 13 plants?
In what context?
In any context, if there's 13 plants, you count them. How long does it take you to count 13 plants?
Objection to form and foundation, incomplete hypothetical. You can answer.
I should be able to do that in about a minute or two if they're all in the same room.
Does Woodland Park PD work exclusively with Teller County on the conduction of search warrants?
Objection to form.
No, we'll work with a number of agencies depending on the kind of investigation that we're working on.
Would you say Teller County Sheriff's Department has helped you with every narcotic search warrant dealing with marijuana?
Objection to form and foundation.
No,
What percentage of the investigations, let me retract the question. What percentage of search warrants conducted by Woodland Park Police Department do Teller County have a part in? Does Teller County have a part in?
Objection to form and foundation.
I would estimate we involve them in about half of our search warrants.
And why were they included on the search of Colton Wolf's house?
Objection to form and foundation.
They had extra bodies that could assist us.
Is it true that you individuals get recompensated for overtime through federal grants?
Objection to form and foundation.
We can get reimbursed through grants, yes.
Has Woodland Park PD received grants as reimbursement?
Objection to form and foundation.
Yes,
From what agencies?
Objection to form and foundation.
State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs through the gray and black marijuana grant, law enforcement activity fund, high visibility DUI fund, bulletproof vest partnership, the Victims of Crimes Act, and the bail grant.
Can you tell me the process to get reimbursed on expenses through one of these grants?
Documentation of hours submitted quarterly is typically how it's done.
What type of documentation?
Officers' hourly rate times the amount of time they were on that call.
Do officers also get comp pay?
They can get comp pay.
Can you explain to us comp pay?
It's where they work additional hours above and beyond their 40 hours, and instead of taking pay, they receive credit for time off down at a later time.
Can you explain to me why there was a need for 10 officers at Colton Wolf's raid?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
10 plus officers, sorry.
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
I haven't counted all the officers, but when there is a marijuana grow and we believe there's a chance that we need to remove plants, we'll bring in additional officers.
So did you believe there was going to be a lot of plants at Colton's house?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
The officers that conducted the investigation believe that there was a chance that there could have been a lot of plants that would need to be removed. Yes.
And what was that based on?
Objection to
Based on-
Foreman Foundation.
Based on their investigation.
Let's break that investigation down. What was it based on exactly?
Objection to Foreman Foundation.
Mr. Poppy, am I answering Mr. Wolf's case today or Mr. Scagio's?
Let's take a break to discuss. I think we should take a break anyway. It's been going for almost 2 hours. Why don't we take a break for 15 minutes?
All right, we're going off the record. The time is 10:50 a.m.